What's going on, everyone? So today is a very interesting day. Depending on when you watch this video, we may have already gotten our answer. But Lauri Markkanen, if he signs an extension today on August 6th, then he would still be eligible to be traded at some point this season, right? Around the trade deadline, the Utah Jazz could look to flip Lauri Markkanen into star or various players, but essentially he could still be traded. However, if he doesn't sign an extension today and he decides to sign the extension tomorrow or any day thereafter, then Lauri Markkanen would be unable to be traded this year. Now, Utah could trade him later on down the road, but it's leaning and looking more and more like that he is going to sign an extension, but after today's date. All the reports and news that have been coming out leading to today have all kind of signaled that, like, hey, Lauri Markkanen, he doesn't want to be traded by the Utah Jazz. Teams like the Golden State Warriors are not willing to give up what is necessary to land Lauri Markkanen. Therefore, Utah is expected to give him that contract extension, and in doing so, could dictate the future of Lauri Markkanen with the Utah Jazz. But again, it just comes down to, does he sign today or does he not? Now, look, they could still trade him at some point, right? Like he could, they could still work out some type of trade. So it's not like after today, oh, he can't be traded at all if he were to not sign the extension. But if he signs that extension, then he can't be traded. So it's something to keep in mind, that it's not like, oh, after today, that's it, no trades can ever happen. It just means that chances are no trade is going to happen. Does that make sense? So yes, technically tomorrow Utah could still trade Lauri Markkanen and then go to a new team, but if they haven't gotten the trade done and they haven't gotten the deal done by now, they're probably just going to sign him to that new extension, and then he'll at least finish the season as a Utah Jazz. But you never know, right? Like, a lot of time between the time of posting this video and today. Like I said, depending on when you are watching this video, it's very possible that maybe he's already signed that extension. It really comes down to also, what does Utah want to do, right? Does Utah look at him as a long-term piece, right? The problem is he's 27 years old already, which isn't old by NBA standards, but it's not really young either. And you're talking about a team that is kind of in the midst of a rebuild, and it just becomes so much more hard to trade Lauri Markkanen once that extension kicks in. Because right now, the reason he's so valuable and the reason it's so easy to trade for him is because he's making essentially peanuts for, player versus contract, right? This, like right now, he's making $18 million for this upcoming season. But once he signs that new extension, you're talking 40 plus million. And that just makes things so much more difficult for teams to go and trade for, right? Like, take a team like the Golden State Warriors. Right? Like, if they change their mind and go, oh, you know what, tell you what, let's trade for him next year, or whatever. Like, at that point, it makes things incredibly difficult in any team, right? Because any team that looks to go trade for Lauri Markkanen, now you don't have to match 18 million, you have to match 40 million plus, and on top of that, you have to give up however many assets and pieces, and it makes things a lot more difficult. Chances are, if the Jazz sign Lauri Markkanen, they're probably going to be stuck with him, right? Because he also has an injury history, and that's something that needs to be kept in mind. And I've seen people try to defend, and go, oh, well, Lauri Markkanen, he only played 55 games last year because the Utah Jazz were trying to tank. Okay, well, what about every other year, right? And again, it wasn't like Utah, only played him half the season because he was healthy and they just wanted to lose. No, he got hurt. And instead of rushing him back, we're kind of like, hey, you're supposed to come back this week. Yeah, why don't you take another week off, right? Why don't you continue, quote unquote, rehabbing your injury, right? So, yeah, sure. Could they have done that? Yeah. But you look at his entire career, the most games he's ever played is 68 games. Any team trading for him, even right now at 18 million, it's a risk. Now, I'm not saying that he's not, that he's not worth more than the 18 million. I do think he's worth more than 18 million. I don't think he's worth the 40 million. I don't. I think Utah is going to end up overpaying him. And if this guy can't stay healthy, what team is lining up to go and trade for Lauri Markkanen? Again, he played 55 games, 66 games, 61 games, 51 games, 50 games, 52 games, and then his rookie season, he played 68 games. Like, that's not really a gold standard for health, right? And then, again, on top of that, you have to give up all the assets you'd have to give up to go get Lauri Markkanen. And then on top of that, you have to give up all the players to match salaries for most of these teams. And right off the bat, him making 40 plus million would naturally take out like, half the teams in the league, right? So, and it's just, where does he rank as far as a team goes, right? He's not the best player on a championship team. You see that with Utah. Is he your second best player? Maybe, right? Like if you have like Giannis, right? Maybe, or like Jokic, right? Like if you and you put Lauri Markkanen and then like a bunch of high quality role guys around, maybe. But I think really Lauri Markkanen is like your third best player. Like if you put him on a team like, like if you swapped him for, Michael Porter Jr. or something, not saying that they should, but just an example, then yeah, I think maybe you could win a championship. Or, if you were to go to the Lakers with like LeBron James and Anthony Davis, right? He'd be the third guy, slots in, fits seamlessly. Like the fit with Lauri Markkanen is essentially perfect everywhere, right? Because he's a guy that's not going to take away from what you got going on. He's a guy that doesn't need the ball in his hands, super effective and efficient off ball and shooting the basketball. So he has all the traits that you want as like a plug and play guy, but he's going to be getting paid as if he is your second best player on a team. And I don't believe that he is. I think he is more like your, again, third best player if you want to be a, bona fide contender. Like if you're a true contender, again, if he were to go to the Warriors, right, and they were able to swap Moses Moody for him, right? Now, with Steph's greatness and him having like an incredible season, and then, maybe Jonathan Kuminga kind of takes the next step, and, maybe Andrew Wiggins gets back to being the Andrew Wiggins of, 2022, and you kind of compile all that, and it's like, okay, now you're a contender. But again, that's asking a lot. I think you have to have the right star, and that's like a clear number one. Like you look at, a team like Milwaukee when they won the championship, right? Giannis was so great. And you look at the pieces around him, it was the overall talent of high-end role players, right? And then, you had Drew Holiday, you had Chris Middleton. Neither are really a number two, but both were a number three. But you pair those two combined with Giannis's greatness and Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and everything else. Now it's like, okay, you can win a championship. Like, could you send him in the right place and do something like that? Possibly. But personally, I just think Lauri Markkanen, I just think that he probably at this point is going to stick with the Jazz. I think if he does get traded, it's at some point today. Again, maybe it's already happened, right? Depending on when you're watching this video. But, I think if there isn't a trade or move today, chances are we wake up tomorrow or the next day and he signs a new extension with the Jazz. And then that signals that, hey, Lauri Markkanen is off the table. And there we go, right? It's probably that kind of thing. But like I said, we'll see how this all plays out. If you're Utah, it's probably in your best interest to trade him, right? Because again, it's like, are you really building around a 27-year-old? It's just, if you're the Jazz, you probably want to trade him, right? But they have such a high asking price for him. And don't get me wrong, like, he's very good, and I do think in the right situation could really elevate a team, but it's just, like, now he's probably going to sign that extension. And if you're Utah, I just think you could have gotten a lot more for him. Got a young piece, even with the Warriors, right? Like, Moses Moody is a solid young piece that could be a cornerstone. You probably get like 4 firsts. I just think for a team like Utah, that's more valuable than Lauri Markkanen. Because again, if Lauri Markkanen can't stay healthy and he's 40+ million, right? Look at a team like Chicago with Zach LaVine, right? Like, Chicago's begging teams to take Zach LaVine, but because of his injury history and his contract and all that stuff, no one wants to touch him. And the new CBA, I think the Jazz are going to find themselves in a very similar position with Lauri Markkanen. Now, I think Lauri Markkanen potentially has more value than Zach LaVine does currently, but I'm telling you, that new CBA is no joke, and the cost of Lauri Markkanen is not going to be a joke anymore, and I just think it changes everything. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, like, they're being silly, they need to trade Lauri Markkanen now? Do you think no, keep Lauri Markkanen? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.